real quick for a second, I want to talk about the streets, right? I want to talk about how most of your problems and they come from what's happening in the streets. Most of your problems come from what's happening in the streets, right? I heard May say, he doesn't answer to big homies, right? You know, because he's not the little homie. And I completely agree with him, right? I completely agree with him. Um, we gotta understand, like, the street life is played out. It's played out, right? You know, hustling, walking down the street, five people at a time, five. I saw one time, I saw like 20 people just bunched up together, just walking down the street, right? Just, you can tell it was hazardous. You can tell it was hazardous. Like, this whole thing about officiating what goes on around you, right? Because you got to remember, right? The blocks we live on, the blocks we stand on, even your homeowners don't own up into what they property tax. If they don't pay their property tax, they don't own anything, right? So, like, you got this guy who's on the block, right? And he's causing problems for people who just randomly come by or randomly traverse. That's the issue. That's the issue. And some people may not be able to relate, but, if you live in Philadelphia, you live in Baltimore, you live in Detroit, you live in Chicago, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And even some places in the South. You know what I mean? It's bypassed the time for, like, stupidity being applauded. I'm not applauding stupidity. It's bypassed for that, right? I could remember, right, when you had the gangs outside and, it was like the early 2000s, everybody running around, jumping on people, right, causing fights before the guns really got out of control for my demographic, my group, right? People were going around jumping on people, running in people's houses, beating on people, right? All that time that type of stuff was happening, I was in a house listening to Malcolm X tapes, listening to Fred Hampton tapes. This is before I really got into Thomas Sankara. This before I got into that. People were outside doing whatever they were doing, right? Selling dummy packs. I was in the house listening to pro-black tapes. I was listening to the NOI. You know what I mean? So, like, we got to understand what's manhood and what's not manhood, right? We got to understand what that really means. I don't really like this whole thing about if you're not doing something dangerous, right? You're not appealing to the girl who lives next door. You're not appealing, right? That's really why I never really got along with divergence, the convergence that happens in the community. I never really got along. Like, I can never relate to most of the people who were in my demographic. I couldn't relate. You know what I mean? Because, for one, I wasn't going to grip pistols. I wasn't going to sell drugs. I wasn't going to sleep with every woman. I wasn't going to cheat and steal. You see what I mean? Like, I wasn't going to do these things. I wasn't going to phony kick it. That's one thing I wasn't going to do. I say this over and over again. Young people, you 18, you 19, you 20, you know, either go to JC, go to the military, or do both of those. Like, for real, like, get outside your city. Rely on the federal government while it's here. Rely on the government to get you the dimes that you need to get. Don't just sit in the city and just be like, you know what? I'm going to find a way. Because it's not the inner cities. It's nothing. When I left Detroit and I went to St. Paul, I saw something completely different than what I was used to. When I got around Africans, I was a completely different person. I felt my status rise. When I got around Africans, I felt my status rise. I was no longer the teenager, right, who was being overlooked. Business opportunities came. Social relationships came. All type of stuff started to happen for me. All because I changed my circle. All because I changed my circle. So right now you have people who are calling themselves to be better than most or different than most or whatnot, what have you. It's still not going to change your circumstances. It's still not going to change the circumstances. So yeah, you know, I agree with Mace. You know, big homie, little homie, nah. Great peace.